Hello and welcome to Season 14, Episode 3 of Solely Singleton. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And because you know what time it is, here's our other hoe. Here's our other hoe.
That's about right. I mean, you're not wrong.
Here's that other hoe, Christian.
What up, nerds? I'm your other hoe.
All right, so for anyone who can't tell, this is the Neon Dynasty Hot Takes episode. We're all already in the mood. Now, into the main topic.
Sounds good.
For those listening along at home, don't have a panic attack. If we don't go exactly in order, we're moving Christian's cards around so that he can talk regularly and not fuck off for 30 minutes straight when he has a stretch of no cards.
Ow the Dawn Sky is 3 white for a 5/4 legendary dragon spirit with flying and vigilance. When Ow the Dawn Sky dies, choose one. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of non-land permanent cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Or you could choose to put 2 +1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or vehicle. I mean, so base stats, 5-drop, 5/4 flying vigilance is solid.
Yes. So this is the first of the dragon cycle, and I don't like this one as much as I do some of the others.
I feel like the fact that it's 5-power flying means that it does need to be dealt with, or you're just gonna win the game.
Yeah.
So you're gonna probably get that dice trigger when they have to spend the resources to remove it.
But I think of the dice triggers, this one is the worst rattlesnake.
Yeah, I mean, so top 7 cards, any number that's mana value 4
But
or less.
it's non-land permanents only.
Right.
So every land and every instant and sorcery you flip is useless. So let's say 3 of them are creatures, 1 of them is a 6-drop, you get 2 dudes. And they can't be that high impact.
Right. You're looking at your 3-drop and 1-drop or something like that.
Yeah, let's say you get a 4-drop out of it and a 2-drop. Pretty good case. But it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's okay. And the other mode I don't see happening very often.
I mean, putting 2 +1/+1 counters on certain things can be quite scary, but
it's not a good death trigger to pull together a 5-drop in white.
no.
I just want to double check, Brad, because something you said made me think you might have been reading this wrong. You realize it's total mana value 4 or less, right?
Oh my god, it's total fuck this card. No. Fuck this card.
Oh, you thought it was anything 4 or less?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he said 4 and 2, and I was like, no, that's not how that works.
No, this card's ass. Holy shit. I didn't realize I maxed out at a single 4-drop.
Yeah.
I was like, you can get value off the first one. That's not the worst. You're never using the second. Never mind. You might use the second because the first one's awful.
I mean, I don't think it's awful, but I do think all of that put together, the Dawn Sky is probably not there comparing to your other 5-drop options in white.
Yeah, no. It does not help that they got the flying and blank, and vigilance is fucking awful.
It's not great.
Yeah.
Versus trample or menace on the others, you're not.
And it's only got 4 toughness, so it's not one of those it's a brick wall that also swings sometimes.
Yeah, not a fan. Let's move on to the first Christian card.
All right, so first up, we've got Banishing Slash. White for an uncommon sorcery. Destroy up to 1 target artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature. Then, if you control an artifact and an enchantment, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. I originally had this on my list. I eventually removed it, primarily because white is annoying to deal with. It being sorcery kind of hurts as well. So the added benefit of getting the 2/2, I think that obviously if you're building your cube for this, you're going to know. And I think if you are building your cube for this, this is a totally fine card to introduce as a payoff, if you want to say that much. I just don't think it's that crazy of a payoff. And the downsides just don't make it worth it.
Yeah.
I think it's unlikely for it all to come together and get that 2/2 in just normal cube environment and cube play.
Correct. Yeah.
It is kind of nice to be able to have artifact, enchantment, or creature at 2-drop, but yeah, white.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that add up to make it like not as enjoyable to me. The double white, the sorcery, the creature has to be tapped, all these things. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, look, white removal. I've got about every damn Oblivion ring that exists known to man. You get
Yeah.
Path of Exile, Swords to Plowshares, all those number of things. And so it's hard for something like this to really make the cut. Removal is always going to be hard. There's a lot of good removal that I don't play in many different colors.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't think Banishing Slash is bad. It's just, there's, like you said, so many other options, and
Yeah.
the upside to this is probably not worth it compared to the other ones.
The upside is so rare to happen because you need an artifact and an enchantment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also this is an aside. I kind of hate when these payoff cards, so to speak, the payoff is kind of vanilla, because you think of the moment where you're like, all these pieces come together, and then your drafter or your player goes, "Sick! I made all the things happen." They go get their token, they put on the battlefield, and they're like, "Anyway, your turn." Like it doesn't really feel impactful.
Yeah, that's definitely not what this kind of card's going for. This one's more of like this is a fine card on its own,
Yeah.
but when it comes together, it's like you get a 2/2 and you kill something.
Yep.
It's pretty solid.
At sorcery speed, which
Yeah.
you probably could have already done. Just play
Yeah.
Leon and Relic Warder. It does the same damn thing. Such a high percent of the time. And I don't think Leon and Relic Warder is a good card.
I don't play it. Mostly because of the double white, which is exactly
Yeah.
the problem. Yeah.
All right, I guess we can move on to another Dragon Spirit, Brad.
And we're on to multicolored.
So, you're righter than I want you to be. So it's time for us to discuss the mandatory card of the set with a 5-color activation so that you can play it as your 5-color general in EDH. Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa, is 3 and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature dragon spirit. It has flash, flying, and when Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as you control Kyodai. It also has Wooburg. Kyodai gets +5/+5 until end of turn. Total flavor text.
So, Kyodai or Kyodai?
Yeah, Kyodai is probably correct.
Ignoring that. 4-drop 3/3 flash flying, give something indestructible.
I sleep.
I don't think it's bad.
It's a very boring card, and you're in 4-drop in white. We have the entire history of every set in Magic to pull from. This is one of the densest things possible in Cube to break into. This card ain't fucking doing it.
Yep.
Probably not, though I do wonder if it's going to play similarly annoying to like Archangel Avacyn, where like you flash it in and you make something indestructible.
Oh, good. More downsides.
One of the comparisons I heard was comparing it to Resto Angel when played fairly.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And it compares alright to Resto Angel, but because it lacks the flicker part of Resto Angel, which is always getting the value out of it in addition to saving something,
Yeah.
this instead gets the thing gets saved until this is gone, unless it's exile, in which case it still gets fucked.
Yeah. But I mean, you could flicker this and give something else indestructible if like
No. we're
No.
working so hard to name this. It's worse than Resto Angel in one of the hardest things to crack in Cube. It's not worth mentioning in my opinion.
yeah, probably not. Like I don't think it's a bad card. It's just like 4-drop white cards. Get out of here.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
And because it's a 5-color dragon spirit thing, in 3 years when I go, oh, that might be a fun thing people forgot about to put into a budget cube, it'll be like $20 fucking. All right, Christian, it's time for you to be wild. Some would say you were born for it.
Born to Drive. 2 and a white for an uncommon enchantment aura. Enchant artifact or creature. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature and or vehicle you control. More importantly, this has a channel ability. Channel is back. All of the channel texts are pay mana and discard this to do a thing. So it's basically cycling, but you don't draw a card, you do something else. That's channel. Channel. 2 and a white. Discard Born to Drive. Create 2 1/1 colorless pilot creature tokens with this creature crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. Let's talk pilot creature tokens real quick. The problem with pilot creature tokens in Cube is most of the vehicles that you can cube with, you can only cube with because their crew costs are like 1 or 2.
I agree.
The pilot text is meaningless, but I do still like this card.
I like it too, and I think that I wouldn't scoff at somebody including it in their white section for Peasant.
To me, 2 and a white create 2 1/1s is a solid start.
That's the main mode. Yeah.
And then sometimes you'll just enchant something, and if they don't have the removal for it, you just win the game.
Yeah. There are other cards that already fit this bill. Could play the instant that I, in my head, just keep calling Spirited Away, even though that's not even close to what it's called, but it makes 2 spirits.
Yeah.
It's like the front half of Lingering Souls, but instant. Anyway, that one exists if you want to go for that. This is, I mean, not better than that inherently because those have flying, so that kind of just makes that better. There's also Omen of the Sun, which it's similar. You gain some life. You have some ability to scry. I mostly just play that because of the synergy. You know, it's just kind of middling.
I'm not taking that bait. So, Eric, the next card is very appropriate for you to read, in my opinion. This is one of the most Eric cards.
I love this card. We got Lion Sash. Lion Sash is 1 and a white for a 1/1 artifact equipment cat. You can pay white to exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. And it has Reconfigure 2. So Reconfigure is like equip, but like different.
Yeah, it's the new equip that's different for rules back-end reasons, I assume.
Yeah. I'm sure it's just easier because like this is already a creature, and I don't mind it. It's an interesting like take on equip or whatever. But so Lion Sash as a card, I think this is actually like really good. It reminds me a lot of Scavenging Ooze, but in white.
I was gonna say it's white Scavenging Ooze, right?
And the fact that it also has the ability to equip on something else is pretty sweet. I think this is good. All around, I don't see any downside to it. It's a 2-drop in white. Remember when we talked about 2-drops in white, Brad?
Yeah.
So, like, it's not particularly difficult to break into that little section there. And this is doing a lot of things. It's an artifact, you know, for your artifact synergies that you're trying to do, which does matter at 2-drop in white. There are artifact aggro styles, so it's not nothing there.
Yeah.
Basically, I really like Lion Sash. I don't think this is the best 2-drop, but all around, I think it's going to work very well in most cubes.
Nice.
I have nothing to add. It seems absolutely great. Christian, let's keep it going.
So next up, we've got Hot Shot Mechanic. Single white mana for an uncommon artifact creature Fox Pilot, and it is a 2/1. It also has Hot Shot Mechanic cruise vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. It's just the same thing as the pilot text as before. I have the same problems with the pilot text as before. This, for all intents and purposes, is a vanilla 2/1 for white with the added benefit of being an artifact creature. If that's an upside, or if it's not an upside, then it's a downside. I think that it's obviously good enough to play. I'm not going to be like, well, why are you playing it?
Yeah. It's a 1-drop 2 power without a downside.
Yeah. It's just, we actually have a lot of 2/1s in white that have at least some sort of upside, and this basically has none to me. It being an artifact creature is good for the artifact aggro deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, if you're supporting artifact aggro, then Hot Shot Mechanic's going to make it in your cube.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But otherwise, probably not. Like, there's enough other options that are better.
Mm-hmm. But there is the added fact that, like, it being an artifact doesn't matter that much, actually, for the artifact aggro deck, which I know sounds stupid in principle, but at least in Peasant, a lot of the artifact aggro cards actually care about equipment specifically.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
There are things like Court Homunculus that care about another artifact, but honestly, like, Thraben Inspector is just as effective for that as this is, but is a better card. You know, things like that. And ultimately, yeah, I don't know that I'm even going to be trying out this card. I just think it's actually kind of mediocre, and the vehicle text is kind of distracting from the fact that it's a vanilla 2/1.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think it's pretty easy card of like if you're playing artifact aggro, it goes in. If not, probably not.
Yeah.
So.
With enough of these pilot text cards, it makes me want to consider things that have...
No, don't do it.
No, hold on. It makes me want to consider things that have 3 or 4, but as I looked through them, I was like, it's just not worth it. Like,
No, because the problem is that the vast majority of those that crew 3, crew 4 are just not pushed enough.
They're not, yeah.
Or they have too high of a mana cost
Mm-hmm.
to be playable with these more aggressively curved cards.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll take the next card.
Sounds good. March right on.
We have March of Otherworldly Light, which is X and a white for an instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may exile any number of white cards from your hand. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. And then the actual effect is exile target, artifact, creature, or enchantment with mana value X or less.
Anytime that there's mana reductions involved, you have to look at it, right?
Right. That's where I'm like stuck on this one. I don't think it's good enough, but with mana reductions, it's always like tempting where you get card disadvantage, but possibly taking out something very important.
Is this secretly like an aggro card? Like you top
No.
deck, one of your 2/1s that aren't really effective anymore in the mid game, and just make this cost, X is 4 or 5, and you can just get rid of something that's blocking or whatever.
Yeah, my only problem is every time I do the math on this thing, I feel like it's a mana off.
You're just down too many cards.
Like if I
Yeah.
toss a card and cast this for 2, I want to be able to get rid of their 4-drop, and that only gets rid of their 3-drop.
Yeah.
I think it's possible that this is better in power environments where you're able to just cast it for white and get the artifacts that you're looking at there.
True.
Sure.
Then it's being used for like mostly a smash variant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with the upside of later on in the game, you can actually use it to get rid of problematic things that are not 0-drops.
Yeah, it may be one of those cards where when you reach the powered environment, because so much of the cube is from 0 to 2-drop anyway, you're not really losing anything. And the things where you're losing card advantage on, it was going to do more damage to you in the advantage it was giving.
Yeah.
You're okay with going down 2 cards because that thing that you had to answer was going to win the game. So
Yeah.
So that's a fair take on it. I'm still kind of split on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's just because white has so many already good removal spells. Like,
would you legitimately want to put this in your deck over something more consistent like Oblivion Ring?
yeah,
Because that can also hit Planeswalk.
Yeah. If I'm anything except for the most aggressive deck or in a super low end like combo power, everyone's dead by turn 2 type of cube, I don't see myself playing this.
Yeah.
no, and you have to exile the cards from your hand, so you're not even getting like some graveyard
Mm-hmm.
value back type thing. There's gone.
Yeah, it's overly fair in my opinion for what it's doing.
Probably.
Sounds like a white card.
Yeah, I know. All right, Eric, I got to dodge the bullet. You have to read the first of these pieces of shit.
Oh, I see now. We're into the first of the sagas. We've got the Restoration of Iganjo is an enchantment saga. The first is search your library for a basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. The second is you may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And 3 is exile it and return as the battlefield transformed under your control, which is Architect of Restoration, which is an enchantment creature, Fox Monk, 3/4, Vigilance. When Architect of Restoration attacks or blocks, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. That's a lot of fucking words.
This card is just awful, right? This is a ton of words and it's fucking bad.
So the first one of Get a Plains is horrible for 3 mana. It
Oh my god.
doesn't even go into the battlefield, so it's not ramp. You just get it in your hand.
Right, because I think it's supposed to be powering part 2, which is on turn 4 after wasting turn 3, you get to return a permanent mana cost 2 or less from graveyard to battlefield tapped.
Awesome.
Why are we reading this? Why did this make the list?
Hey, look, you were in charge of cutting the yellow cards.
To be fair, the creature payoff at the end is not terrible. It's a 3/4 vigilance that's making 1/1.
No, they're all terrible. Okay, fine. I'm using this as a rant then to get some value out of this piece of shit. All of these cards are fucking awful because the creature has summoning sickness when it comes in.
Yeah.
So on turn 5, if you play this on curve, you get a summoning sick 3/4 vigilance.
Yeah, but when it blocks, you make a 1/1.
Oh boy. All of these are fucking miserably bad. They have to be way above rate to be playable.
You really need to get the first and second doing something. Like, it needs to be useful, and the Restoration of Iganjo is not good on the first and second. So, I guess we can move on to one of the best cards in the set. Christian, you want to take it?
Spirited Companion, 1 and a white for a common 1/1 enchantment creature, dog. When Spirited Companion enters the battlefield, draw a card. So, anybody who listens to the podcast regularly, I'm sure there's at least 4 of you. You already have heard a very spirited discussion about this card. What was it, last week? Week before? Something like that?
Week before.
Yeah.
Something like.
I agree with a lot of what you all said already, which is that, white Elvish Visionary, white 2-drops are fairly replaceable. I agree with all that. However, while I think this card is good, I do think it's worth talking about the fact that it suffers from the problem of other cards doing what this does better for their specific decks. And so, of course, you have Wall of Omens, which is going to be the better version of this effect in a control deck or even a mid-range deck, in my opinion.
I don't know about mid-range decks. That's usually going to have, like, a pair of equipments to attach. So, but yeah, in a control deck.
I don't think you should just write off the fact that it is a 2-mana 1/1, right? There's a reason why we don't just play Elvish Visionary. Now, of course, white is more going to be able to more take advantage of that stat line because of equipment, like you're saying, but there is a reason why people play Search Party Captain, and it's because it does regularly go down to 2 mana, and you can do that as early as turn 3. On turn 2, you don't need to play this, and if you are taking turn 2 off to play a 1/1, you're being just as non-aggressive in your aggro deck as you would be with a 3-mana 2/2 or a turn 3 2/2.
This is your value mid-range card that acts as a door stopper that you get to get value out of when you play it. It is the slightly more mid-rangey version of Wall of Omens.
Yeah.
The big thing here is when you color shift Elvish Visionary, the stonks go up. Elvish Visionary has the problem of an anemic body in the color of non-anemic bodies.
Also, you're trying to either skip the 2-drop slot or use the 2-drop as a way to guarantee more mana advantage.
Yes, exactly. You're doing different things in the color.
Yes. I think we all very much agree that white is a better color for this effect than green. We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
So this card does all the right things, and even being an enchantment can be an upside here.
Absolutely.
Because if you're trying to push for an enchantment thing, or artifact enchantment thing, whatever you're trying to push for, you're just getting extra bonus here out of it being that.
And there's no real downside that you're going to get out of it.
The downside doesn't really exist, because if anyone is using artifact and enchantment removal on this thing, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're good to go with your actual scary enchantments.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks because I really like this card. I feel like I'm having to play devil's advocate for like the don't just auto include it camp, but
yeah, you are, because
you're an idiot.
Just auto include it. It's a fucking good card.
It's good.
This is going to go further in a lot of decks as a role player card than your generic 3/1 for 2. In an aggro deck, there is argument for you just go for the thing with the biggest power. Sure.
Yeah.
That's all you care about in that deck. But there's more than an aggro deck in white.
Absolutely.
Which I'm aware now I'm having the problem of I keep forgetting that at Uncommon you don't have control decks because you don't have board wipes, you don't have things like that.
Correct.
So yes, it's awkward because you're looking at this from a poor person's standpoint. But for those of us with jobs and income, this becomes slightly different. I'm mostly just trying to rile up peasant players right now.
You're doing a very good job.
I know.
For the mid-range decks, we also have Priest of Ancient Lore, as well as another one, which is the 3-mana 2/1 that gains a life and draws a card. So it's like things are already in this slot. Again, it's not like this is something that has never existed.
My problem is my 3-drop needs to do something. The 2-drop is stalling. The 3-drop needs to start doing things.
Yes and no.
I feel like, again, it's the difference between rare and not rare. Like,
Yeah, that's why I say yes and no.
you're thinking of like Blade Splicer and Monastery Mentor and Thalia. Like, I don't think non-rares have quite as good 3-drops. I mean, they get Flicker Wisp, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. ...
And Abstain Falconer.
That's not a 3-drop. It is, but it isn't.
What?
Oh, because the Outlast.
No, Absent Falconer it's like a 7-drop because that's how late you play it.
Okay.
You play it when you win.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess we can move on.
We can. Okay, wait. Long story short, you should probably just play Spirited Companion. Just give it some thought, please. That's all.
Or just put it in your cube. You won't go wrong.
Next up is the Wandering Emperor, who is 2 white for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker. The Wandering Emperor has Flash, and as long as the Wandering Emperor entered the battlefield this turn, you may activate her loyalty abilities anytime you could cast an instant. She's also got a +1 ability, which is put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. It gains first strike until end of turn. A -1 of create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance, and a -2 of exile target tapped creature, you gain 2 life. Wandering Emperor is in every way a better version of Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa, at the exact same drop, in the exact same set. Why did we talk about that magic card?
Wandering Emperor is pretty cool.
So yes, Wandering Emperor, in my opinion, is a fantastic, interesting magic card because it is a combat trick at the 4-drop slot in white that is also just a sweet value walker.
The first strike on the +1 is actually scary as a combat trick.
I love that all 3 abilities, when played on your opponent's attack phase, are dirty.
Yeah.
Like make a 2/2.
Yeah, you either get rid of them with the +1, which is the best case scenario because you got up to 4 loyalty, or you've got no board, you -1 to get the block in, or you're in a real bad spot, you -2 just to get rid of whatever attacked.
Yeah, and that you just get 2 life as well.
Yeah.
Love that.
Cool. And like the Wandering Emperor still sticks around. It's at 1 loyalty, but like it's still there.
Yeah, but if your opponent, like, let's say they're swinging with, like, I don't know, a 3/2, and then they've got their really good creature or whatever, you could go, in a worst case scenario, empty board, flash her in, -1, trade, -2, delete the other one. She's a 2-for-1 right there as a combat trick.
Yeah.
You did eat the bigger creature in that case. But then you gain 2 life back, so meh. And it only goes up from there.
Yeah, and I think that there's a big aspect of this card of the fact that like when you play it, you're playing it on your opponent's turn or whatever, and hopefully doing some type of combat stuff. It also means that like they're not attacking it that turn, like because they've already declared their attacks.
Yeah,
and they're not attacking this planeswalker.
I was gonna say, because of the redirection rule being changed, it doesn't do that anymore, right?
Yeah, so I think that helps the fact that it starts with such a low starting loyalty for a 4-mana planeswalker. It gets basically 1 turn of protection.
There's the offensive use too that we should not neglect, which is on turn 4. If you're being more aggressive, you can set up what looks like a bad block.
Yeah.
Where they'll do the block, you flash her in, do the +1/+1 first strike, and take out something that's very obnoxious for you.
Yeah.
And in that case, since you're the aggressor, you're not too worried about her just sitting around undefended.
Yeah.
Because your opponent's the one on the back foot.
Right. And I mean, there's always going to be plays of like, oh, it's the correct thing to play this during my main phase so that I can -2 to exile something so that there's no whatevers. But I think all of it put together is pretty solid. It does have the slight issue of it's 4-drop in white.
It does, but it's a more interesting walker than a lot of the equivalents.
Just having flash makes it more interesting, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that none of it is the classic build up slowly to an alt that sort of kind of wins the game in a roundabout way.
Right.
It's just a much more interesting design space for a walker. I wholly support playing this card.
Yeah, definitely. Same.
Last one in white.
Yeah, it's for you.
Touch the Spirit Realm. 2 and a white for an uncommon enchantment. When Touch the Spirit Realm enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until Touch the Spirit Realm leaves the battlefield. And then it has a channel ability. For 1 and a white and discarding this card, you exile target artifact or creature and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
This is a weird card.
It's a little weird, and I think I'm going to sum up real quick how I feel about it. We have
Okay.
3 copies of Oblivion Ring that we have access to. Just regular Oblivion Ring, not including Faith's Fetters, all the other ones. I'm just going to get rid of one of those 3 and play this. Case closed.
Okay.
I think that while those are generally going to be better, I think this is a more interesting card. I don't really need 3 copies of the same effect.
It's fair. It's worse than an O-ring in case A, but having a more interesting case makes it better than just another copy of an O-ring variant.
Yeah. When we had Banishing Light and Oblivion Ring, it was kind of like, okay, maybe you do want the second effect. Like, obviously, if...
Yeah, now we've got Borrowed Time, though.
and it's just like, look, I don't need... I'm already at the point, this is an unrelated thing, I'm already at the point where I'm kind of getting tired of even just including a million elves that all do the same thing. Like, I just hate adding things for density when they do the exact same thing. That's unrelated.
Yeah. No, it's fair. I get it.
I mean, it's like, it's supposed to be a singleton format, you know? And so I just, whenever I see something like this that's slightly different, it's kind of like, okay, people actually can make decisions as opposed to going, hey, another one. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
So.
And I do like the fact that the channel ability unlocks a little bit of interesting play patterns to it.
Absolutely.
So,
you know, channel abilities, we haven't covered it because it's not that relevant for all of them, but they are quote unquote uncounterable because you're not casting something.
right.
And so, you know, there will be times with this card, for example, where you're up against a control deck, they go to kill your creature, you do this, and they can't just counter that in response. So that's kind of cool.
All right, let's move on to blue, and we're going to start things off with Christian because this is a Christian episode.
Seems like it.
Yeah, welcome to Hot Takes, honestly. I feel like you've said that for the past year.
Been doing good on commons and commons. Yeah.
It's the change in design space.
Yeah, it really is. So for blue, blue's pretty interesting as a color overall. I'm just going to start with that right now. Obviously,
Hot take of the day.
Yeah, this is a long color. There's a lot to talk about.
It is. So for one, ninjutsu's back, and we'll start with that with the first card here in just a second, but I wanted to discuss that. So ninjutsu as a whole, obviously the elephant in the room is that the Dimir ninja's archetype has kind of come into fruition a lot in the past few years. And so
I'm sorry, it's my fault.
Yeah, it's definitely your fault.
Some asshole with a podcast may or may not have sparked this up.
And I know that you've gone off of it to return to the artifact deck, but you still like it.
But I wholly support people playing it.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the artifact deck in my personal cube. Yeah. But that's a different discussion.
And alternatively, in Peasant, we can't really just go to the artifact deck, so we're still on this shit. And, you know, the ninja's deck will benefit from having more cards with ninjutsu, but as we go through lots of these cards that all have ninjutsu, I think it's important to point out that just because something has ninjutsu doesn't mean that it's good enough. And the reason for that is because these cards are taking up a lot of slots as you keep adding more and more and more and more.
And we talked about this in the ninja episode, but the ninja deck is the flashy name for what is essentially just a tempo deck.
Correct.
And you don't need many ninja cards to call it the ninja deck in your cube. You're just accenting your tempo deck to make it a very fun variation on that deck.
Right. And so as we go through these, I feel like for my cube, I could see myself adding like 1 or 2 more. But apart from that, they're going to need to replace ones that already exist. And so because of that, a lot of these may not make the cut. But what were you going to say?
And I wholly support you on that. That is exactly how you should be looking at it, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like, we're getting more ninjas, so you get more options, and you get to choose which ones you
Mhm.
like,
Exactly.
which is great.
Yeah, it's a lot less. These are my 15 options to pull 4 from.
These are what I have.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to here's the 3 playable ones, you have to play them, right? That's
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, it's good overall, but yeah, there is definitely
Yeah.
a number that you want to have, and it's not all of them.
Right. And so with that said, let's start off blue with Covert Technician, which is 2 and a blue for an uncommon human ninja artifact creature. It is a 2/4 with ninjutsu for 1 and a blue. Whenever Covert Technician deals combat damage to a player, you may put an artifact card with mana value less than or equal to that damage from your hand onto the battlefield. They did not need to give this 4 toughness, but it's kind of cool that they did. That's kind of my feeling on that real
Yeah.
quick. Ninjutsu costs. So for me personally, any ninjutsu that's over 2 mana, I start to get iffy on whether or not I even want to include it to begin with.
Yep.
It does have to do a lot more.
Yeah,
The ones that ninjutsu for 3 have to be fucking amazing.
yeah.
And then 4, I can't think of one off the top of my head that's worth it, other than I don't really consider it part of the ninja deck.
Yeah.
Fallen Shinobi.
Yeah, Fallen Shinobi is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. It's just a big, like, 5/4. Like, that's already scary. So
I think I'm just kind of like scrolling through here. I think the only one I have that's 3 or higher is Moonblade Shinobi, which is a 3/2 that whenever it deals damage, you make a 1/1 flying token.
Yeah, which is your variation on Miss Syndicate Naga.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. It's not that amazing. That's a good example of one that we played because like it's playable and we need density. I could see that one, for example, coming out in lieu of one of these, even if they're not doing
Yeah.
the same thing, you know. So
Ninjutsu 2 is solid.
it is.
You're usually able to get something good out of it, but it's not costing you a ton.
Correct. So this one in particular, getting an artifact with mana value less than or equal to the damage, more often than not, that's going to be 2 or less. So let's value it on that.
Yeah.
Most of the equipment that I run do go into play with that effect. And getting those into play for free in that deck is great because you're tight on mana. You want to be doing a lot of things in the early game and mid game. And
Right.
equipment are naturally better in this deck because most of the things have evasion. So that's really cool. There's also the added effect of a lot of times Baleful Strix is a key part of this particular deck because of it being hard to block. Nobody wants to. And so it's an
Well, I didn't even think about that. That's dirty.
yeah, so that's a really, really good card to ninjutsu things in off of. And it just so happens that if you do that with this, it just comes back onto the battlefield again and draws you another card. So this card in particular, I think, is a really, really cool, interesting card for that deck. Obviously, it also goes up in value as time goes on, as they print more and more playable things that happen to be artifacts at 2 mana or less. Then this thing gets better.
Yes. Especially since they're adding more and more artifacts that are colored.
And that's another thing to bring up is all of the ninjas in this set are artifact creatures. And so whereas before that was not something that you could really add on, this can go get something else. And that's not always going to be what you want to do since you're probably not going to get, that ninjutsu value. But again, it's worth mentioning. It's just all these little things. So
Yeah.
I really like this card personally.
It's very interesting. Covert Technician seems like there's a lot of interesting play that can happen, but I have concerns about it just ending up as a 2/4 a decent number of times.
And that's fair. But then again, that happens a lot with these
It's
ninja
not terrible.
cards,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, it happens.
I mean, we just talked about that one it's a 3/2 that when it deals damage, you make a 1/1 flyer. That is probably going to get in once. And then after that, it's a 3/2. Like, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's room for this effect.
I guess I'll take the next one. Jin Gitaxius, Progress Tyrant, is 5 blue for a 5/5 legendary Phyrexian Praetor. Whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn. Also has whenever an opponent casts an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, counter that spell. This ability triggers only once each turn.
What the fuck do you do when you copy an artifact spell?
It tells you in the reminder text right there, a copy of a permanent spell becomes a token.
Oh, hey, I stopped reading. Oh, that's kind of cool.
It was in parentheses. I don't need to read it.
Yeah. That's pretty much how my brain works.
As far as the 7-drop slot goes, you've got a couple options for your game enders.
Yeah.
None of them are all-stars in blue. I'm totally fine with this being one of them. This is an absolutely obnoxious reanimation target because of the second ability.
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, like, this is... I'm not a big fan of this compared to the other options for just casting it as your high-end control finisher, but reanimating this seems dumb.
Yeah, whenever you're cheating this in, I feel like the second ability breaks the card in half.
Yeah.
The first ability to me is sort of flavor text in a way. Like, yeah,
It's not
getting
bad.
extra value off your spells is a sweet bonus. You can argue that's like not flavor text level of ability, but it's the bonus.
Because it's definitely not flavor text. Like, you're going to
Yeah.
get value off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's not why you're here. You're here
No.
for the first instant sorcery or artifact, I guess, your opponent casts each turn is countered. That
Yep.
makes it very hard to start removing the things you've cheated in. Your opponent has to start baiting out the auto counter before they get to cast their real spell to try to fix things. And then you're in blue and probably have a real counter for
Yes.
that one.
That's where, like, getting it once, I wasn't really interested in. But the fact that you're already in blue and having counters of your own means that they're probably going to have to go through 2.
Yeah.
And that is going to be tough.
How awful is it after you've got this 5/5 swinging at you from like turn 2 or 3 onward?
Yeah.
And whatever other shenanigans the person may be doing. That's happening, and then you're like, okay, I finally got it. All right, I'm going to bait with Doomblade to get rid of that counter. And then finally, I've got, the 4 extra mana saved up, and I'll just blow my board wipe to finally be done with this. And
Right.
then they're just like force of will.
Yeah. Exactly. and I think that's exactly the play pattern that this card works in, though. I don't like this as a 7-drop control finisher. I like this as a reanimation target. Like, once you're already at the point that you're playing this as a finisher, anything works.
Mhm.
Like, you're so far in control of the game that anything works, and this is not that exciting. But
I do think if you're going to ramp it out, it's kind of nice if you're playing the artifact deck. Just because, like, you can use your artifact ramp to get it out on, like, turn 5-ish, we'll say.
Sure.
You tap out for it, which sucks. Let's say you're tapping out for it on turn 5, pair of signets extra to get it going.
Sure.
Pretty realistic case. You get your 5/5 out of the deal, and it's probably stopping them from immediately removing because of the second ability.
Right.
And then the first ability is going to be real value in that deck. Like, this is the only deck where I can say for certain you're here for the first ability. I like
Yeah.
it, especially like if you end up copying, like you want to go balls deep and try to win like 2 turns from now, you copy a worm coil or a battle sphere to just end it.
I mean, I don't know if that's balls deep. That's just you're copying a worm coil. Congratulations.
You're committing a 7-drop plus a 6-drop. Like, there's a lot of commitment going on to this board. But
I mean, I guess, but it's a worm coil. Like, what are they gonna do? Remove it?
yeah, it's a worm coil being protected.
Not to mention they
So-
can't counter it.
Yeah, all the layers of what's going on make this like really dirty in that deck. I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of Jin.
I was actually not very hot on this card, but the more you've talked about the fact that, it is great in the reanimation, and you've talked up the artifact stuff, maybe I can see this being there.
Yeah,
It's
the
definitely-
worst place for it is as the fair, late game
Yeah.
control finisher card. It's not good like versus Torrential Gear Hulk or something.
No, we're not in the same understanding of what that's gonna do. Like,
Compares really unfavorably to counterspell.
Yeah.
Exactly.
basically.
Lightning bolt deals
So-
more damage.
I think when you remember like why you want to play this card, it is a fantastic card.
Yeah.
Let's keep going though
Yeah.
into Discover the Impossible.
Discover the impossible. 2 and a blue for an uncommon instant with... Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Exile one of them face down and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost if it's an instant spell with mana value 2 or less. If you don't, put that card into your hand. That's a lot of words. Basically, it's a dig spell that on occasion will let you cast something for free.
It's your, oh shit, I need a removal spell. I hope there's one in the top 5 cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate this.
No, it's it's totally reasonable. Also, cool art.
It is.
Yeah. It's
Eh.
a dig spell that you can plan for at end of turn. I'll cast this on my opponent's turn. But then they cast the Haymaker and you're like, you know what? I got a Hail Mary and hope for counterspell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's hope mana leaks in the top here.
I think I saw some people comparing this to Supreme Will. I don't necessarily like that comparison. Well, I mean, okay, the comparison makes sense. I think I like Supreme Will more.
I definitely understand what they're saying with that.
Yeah.
Now that I know that that's something other people are comparing it to.
Yeah.
I get that.
It's in like the same slot of
Yeah.
it's not great all the time, but it's got interesting play and it can work out kind of
Yeah.
thing.
In a way, I mean, I know this is weird because literally nowhere on the card does it say counter target spell, but I feel like it's very easy to talk about this as if it were a counter spell.
It's a very unreliable counter.
Right. And so I almost want to compare it to things like, all of the cancel plus variants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Things like forbid, things like you find the villain's lair. I still hate the fucking name of that card. Maybe I'll just replace that because of the name alone.
There you go.
But any of those, this would be a good replacement for because
Yes.
this doesn't work with them anyway. They have
Yep.
anti-synergy there.
Yeah.
So you more want your Mana Leak or your Remand, something like that.
I was going to say, there is a weird spot of they play a creature that's scary. You want to try and counter it. You don't find a counter, but you find the removal spell.
Yeah.
Which, like, I guess that fail case isn't terrible because it still goes into your hand.
Yeah.
You're just not getting it for free. Like, you're down on mana efficiency, but, like, even that's not terrible.
The fail case there is just what your plan was at end of turn anyway,
Yeah.
except you now have a much higher priority target.
Yep.
Right.
Basically. What I was going to say is that one thing that is kind of interesting about this is you want a density of counter spells,
Mhm.
but you want to make sure you're not going so deep that the counter spells are bad just because you want
Yeah.
that density. This
Yeah.
this replaces a bad, aka 3 mana counter spell, while keeping density up for the better counter spells at 2 mana. Does that make sense?
It's a fair way to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
I can see that.
and then of course there's all the other things too, right? You play this and you're like, oh hey, it's fucking mental note. It's any of the other it's curate. Do any of these cards mean anything to you when I say their names?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, mental note. We play mental note, but
Yeah. It's consider. It's opt. There's one. It's opt, right?
It's op.
Yeah. There's a word that you all know. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're going 5 deep.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find something.
Yeah. You're gonna find something.
We're perhaps not ignoring it, but not necessarily emphasizing the fact that this could also be, oh hey, it's Doomblade. Oh
Yeah.
hey, it's
Or, oh hey, I finally got my finisher. Like,
Yeah, the thing that I've been digging for.
this will just end a turn. I'm gonna play this, and next turn I'm gonna play that and win the game.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have shit.
yeah. I mean, there's lots of stuff that this can get. So
Yeah.
kind of a cool, just density effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Discover the Impossible is actually an interesting card.
All right, next up, we've got Inventive Iteration, and it's 3 in a blue. Its Saga Part 1 is return up to 1 target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Part 2 is return an artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. If you can't, draw a card. Part 3 is exile this saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. The backside being Living Breakthrough, which is a 3/3 enchantment creature moonfolk. It has flying, and whenever you cast a spell, your opponents can't cast spells with the same mana value as that spell until your next turn.
Okay. That's a lot of words. So the 4-drop, bounce something.
Terrible.
Bad.
Not great. Then you get to
Draw a card.
grab an artifact from your graveyard, but it's probably not happening. So you
Draw
just
a
get
card.
to draw a card. Okay. I don't hate it.
I do.
And then you get a 3/3 flyer that is annoying.
This is a terrible magic card. Why is it on here? Next up is Mirror Shell Crab.
Mirror Shell Crab, 5 blue for a common artifact creature crab. It is a fucking 5/7.
It's a big boy.
It's got Ward 3.
I hate it.
Yeah. But most importantly for this card, it has a channel ability. of 2 and a blue, discard this crab, counter target spell or ability unless its controller pays 3. So, if you're casting this for 7 mana, I kind of don't feel like it has any abilities. At that point in the game, Ward 3, I mean, they're probably only playing 1 spell a turn at that point anyway in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, it's top deck.
Yeah, so, I mean, okay, sure, whatever. It's not nothing, but it's almost nothing. If you reanimate this, Ward 3 gets a lot stronger. If you reanimate this, suddenly its other ability of discarding itself to counter a spell or ability is a lot more relevant. In a typical scenario of just a control deck, having the ability to have your finisher be a potential counterspell for a spell or an ability is also very relevant. This thing's a common.
Yeah.
I think it's a common because everything feels slightly overpriced to me.
Yes.
Even in your cube.
And it does. And I don't think that this is the best creature that discards itself. Just because, again, like if Ward 3 just were hexproof, I'd be all over it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be no question.
If Ward 3 were hexproof, I'd think I'd approve of the card more.
Yeah.
Well, don't you have a hexproof thing that discards already in blue?
The whale?
Well, no, the whale doesn't have hexproof. Striped Riverwinder has hexproof. But Waker of Waves is a better card. Well, okay, it does better things than Riverwinder. I won't say it's a better card.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Just having the option for a third one of these is pretty good, though.
And I'll probably just play all 3.
The front side discard thing is probably the best of the 3, unless I'm misremembering what the other 2 do.
No, I mean, they do different things. So Riverwinder's literally just cycling for a blue.
Just draw, yeah.
Waker of Waves is, look at the top 2, put one of them in your hand and the other in the graveyard, but it's 2 mana. And then for 3 mana, you get a probable counterspell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like all 3. Right now, I was playing Blue Dragon just because I wanted another top-end blue card. And I actually didn't mind Blue Dragon, but I did find that it suffered from the, okay, I cast this and I'm dead. Like, over and over and over again that was happening. And so, yeah, apparently top-end blue cards, they need to do more than just be big. Unless you're going to be cheating them out. Yeah, and this works better with that. So I think it's an easy include. I don't think it being an artifact creature is an upside for my cube. I think that's a downside.
Probably.
In this case.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Mind Link Mech, which is 2 and a blue for a 4/3 flying artifact vehicle. It has crew 1. And whenever Mind Link Mech becomes crewed for the first time each turn until end of turn, Mind Link Mech becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed it this turn, except it's a 4/3. It's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types, and it has flying. So this basically gets to absorb the keywords on another card, more or less.
One of the key things is it's crew 1, and it's an evasive 4 power.
It's a 3-drop, 4/3 flying crew 1 baseline. That's good.
Yeah. That's like legitimately solid.
Yeah, and if you're crewing it with like the Vigilant Cat tokens or something, it also has Vigilance, so you could crew it again to block, and it goes up from there. We won't get into the silly cases, talking about a card later in the set. One of my favorite cards in the set, maybe Lizard Blades. Crewing with that is 8 fucking damage.
There's some interesting things that can be done, but I think that Mindlink Mech is honestly being talked about just because its base stats are solid.
Yes, and that is the key part here. It is 4/3 flying artifact vehicle crew 1 upside.
Yeah. It's not going to make it in every cube as an auto include.
No.
But if you're looking for something like this will do well.
Yes. Also, it is just amazing flavor. I love the cyberpunk Gundam mix-up bullshit. Just the funnest version of Japanland for the plane.
I guess I can take the next one because you've got a few after this, Booty. So I'll take the Modern Age. We've got, man, some of these saga arts are so cool.
This one's really cool.
This is my favorite one.
Yeah.
The Modern Age is 1 in a blue for an enchantment saga. The first and second book pages, sets, counters, things of the Modern Age are draw a card, then discard a card. The third one is exile the saga, return to the battlefield transformed under your control, and the flip side is Vector Glider, which is a 2/3 flying enchantment creature spirit. I can't decide how much I like this
I'm
card.
right there with.
Honestly can't, because like it's a 2-drop that I loot. I like 2-drop looters. They're solid. They're always just solid, right?
Yeah, it's a 2-drop looter with haste there.
Yeah. And then like I don't usually want to loot too many times. Like 3.
That's a lie. I want to loot all the time.
3 is usually when I'm like, okay, I've got better things to do. Which this only does 2, so maybe that's not good enough. But like a 2/3 flyer at the end of it isn't bad. Just chilling around, chipping some damage, block some stuff. Like
This is probably very good for Pauper because this is a common.
Yeah.
this is a common, which is
I don't
crazy.
know better. I don't care about Pauper, so I'm going to pretend this is good enough for Pauper players.
Can you help me compare this to some of the other looters we get?
But this is where I have the question of, can this go up to peasant level and be pretty good?
Because I'm currently unsure.
So what do you have, Christian?
Merfolk Looter. We're gonna say that this is better than Merfolk Looter, right?
I don't know.
Really?
I think so.
How many loots with Looter do you want before, like...
Because you gotta remember, like, this also has haste-ish for, like, the creature looters.
Yeah, that's the big thing is this has the haste, Merfolk
Yeah.
Looter has longevity.
Yeah.
Right.
The question is, how long is Looter staying around for?
I feel like 2 loots is at that point you've gotten the value out of a 2-mana card.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Anytime I only get 1, I'm disappointed
Yeah.
in my looter effect. If I get 2, I'm like, okay, it's done its job.
That's fair. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
So then we'll say the haste makes up for the longevity then. So we're
Sure.
about tied.
Yeah.
Then this turns into a summoning sick 2/3 flyer instead.
Which is obviously a better creature than a 1/1.
True.
It might not be relevant in that deck, but it's not irrelevant.
Yeah, it's definitely not irrelevant. Like, a 2-power flyer is still solid.
Like, this block's
stat
totally
in
fine.
even control decks.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. That's kind of my thing. I guess in a slower deck, if you're looting in like a controlling deck, the 2/3 flyer, if you look at it defensively, we don't care that it doesn't have the haste.
Mhm.
We just care that when it comes back in, it can block spirit tokens all day. Anything up to like a mid-size like 2/1 flyers, it just eats them.
Yeah, and like, if you are already controlling the board, like 2-power flying chipping in
Mhm.
is a solid way to win if you're very
Yeah.
slow control deck.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, so obviously this compares well to Merfolk Looter. How does it compare to Looter Ilcore? They do completely different things.
and I think that that's the problem, is they're just so different. It
Yeah.
doesn't really compare.
Yeah, and when you get up to rares with like suspicious stowaway, it's
Yeah.
just way better.
But how does this compare
Yeah.
to, excuse me for misremembering the name, the Level Up one?
It's different because
I think I like this more than the Level Up one.
Enclave Cryptologist
Yeah.
is different because it's the 1-drop.
Yeah, that's true.
But
And Enclave in late game becomes a draw engine,
Yeah.
whereas this becomes a 2/3 flyer. But in most cases, Enclave is just the same thing but with longevity.
Right.
I think Enclave's better than this.
you think so?
It might actually be just because as a 1-drop, it is effectively the 2-drop haste
Yes.
that the modern age is effective.
Well, it
that
costs
we're kind of like
the level
right?
up cost too. So it is. They're very
Yeah.
in line in that way.
Whereas that one has more longevity for the looting effect or eventually just drawing, whereas modern age just gives you a body.
Yeah. But this has the more guaranteed, doesn't get removed.
Yeah.
I still think I like Cryptologist better. They're different though. I don't think those two fight as much.
It's tough, dude. I really
it's
do
close
like
enough.
the modern age.
Yeah, no, that we're having this long of a discussion about a random fucking common
Yeah.
is impressive.
Yeah. I think for me, an easy replacement is Pilfering Hawk, which is the snow card as a flyer. 1/2 flyer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'll play this
Yeah.
over that, which is like, it's yet another knock against even running Snowlands to begin with. I'm coming very close to just being like, whatever, get rid of them. But,
Sell them for money.
yep.
Yep. Dude, if you just say all your snow cards and all of your colorless cards just come from basic lands instead,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Just errata that shit.
Yep. All right. Moving on.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think We can move on to some hacking.
A bunch more ninjas.
Slashing.
Next up, we've got Moon Circuit Hacker, which is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 common enchantment creature, human ninja. You know what? I just realized they're not all artifacts. This one's an enchantment.
You said that, and I was like, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all, but you know what? I'm not going to say it.
I think I misunderstood that when I was looking through the cards, so apparently go back to that. It's whatever. That part of the card wasn't really all that important. Anyway, this one's an enchantment creature, human ninja. I'm stupid. This is a 2/1, and it has ninjutsu for a single blue mana. Whenever Moon Circuit Hacker deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card unless this entered the battlefield this turn. Look, it's a looter.
I mean, it is, but it's also not, because when you ninjutsu it in, you just draw.
Yeah, that's true. So how does this compare to like the modern age? I'm just kidding. They do completely different things in different decks.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, this is a solid hole filler in your ninja deck.
Yeah.
It's going to help propel you forward, and it's cheap.
I wonder if this actually would be a good replacement for Looter Core. Looter Core is more consistent, but if you want to make sure you're not, taking up too many slots with the same thing for different decks.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's tough because like Looter Core
gets in.
is unblockable, which is nice for ninjas, like the later on ninjas.
Yep.
I don't know, dude. I think that's up to like trying to figure out. When it comes to the ninja deck, you have to balance the amount of like enabler type things, like the flying men equivalents, while also only having like so many ninjas themselves, because you don't want all of them.
Yeah.
I do think Moon Circuit Hacker it's pretty good. Like the payoff is there.
Yeah.
Like when it comes into play, you just draw a card when it deals damage, and then afterwards it's still gonna loot if they don't do anything with it. And like it's one of those tough things of like, if they don't block it, you can ninja in other things, or you could just loot. So like,
and the cost is so low. A ninjutsu cost of a single mana.
Yeah. I like it. I like it quite a bit.
I think I do too.
I think it's going to be another one of those, like you brought up earlier, of like, which ones do you actually want?
I honestly think I'm going to have a very, very hard time choosing from the total pool of ninjutsu cards after this set.
Yeah.
In our cube, ignoring the ninja theme itself, just as a tempo card, we have rares like Thieving Skydiver, stuff like that, where they're meant to be tempo cards.
Right.
I don't think this is better than Warkite Marauder because of what that does for that deck.
Yeah, no, Warkite Marauder does other things.
Warkite's really good.
Yeah, but like Skydiver, or I'm just looking at other ones we have run or currently run. I almost wonder if this is just a better tempo card in general. It's crazy this is common.
Yep.
It is. It's possible, but like the thing is like it doesn't have any evasion, which is always awkward in the tempo things.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of it as the ninjutsu thing, and I'm forgetting that like afterwards it's going to have problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't do literally everything, but it's 2 mana to cast 1 to ninjutsu. It still holds equipment, and you're playing those in that deck.
The deck tends to, in my cube at least, it tends to, when you're playing the tempo deck, either rely on being a flash deck or a more blink ETB value oriented tempo deck.
We definitely get that aspect of it in.
Yeah, I don't think it tends to be that much just plain Jane combat oriented with a couple bounces anymore. That doesn't tend to pull its weight as much.
No, which is why the ninja sub theme helped quite a bit.
It did. If you're playing with ninjas, this is an absolute for me. If you're not, like even in my cube, if we're not, I'm like looking around.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It's close, but no, which I think says a lot for like how good it is that I'm even comparing that.
Yeah.
Move on
like,
to
it's not gonna hold weight against things like Watcher for Tomorrow that's good in like literally every deck.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, let's keep going. We got a lot of these covered.
Yeah, Prosperous Thief, 2 and a blue for an uncommon human ninja. This one's not an artifact or an equipment. I can just fucking die. I don't know. This one's a 3/2, and it's got ninjutsu for 1 and a blue. Whenever one or more ninja or rogue creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Treasure tokens are powerful.
I like treasure tokens.
Yeah, this does not allow you to go like super, super crazy. If your deck happens to care about artifacts, this makes more artifacts. Getting 3 damage in is obviously better than 2. Not saying anything nobody knows.
Prosperous Thief is nice in that it also references other ninjas or rogues, I guess, but it's not always just getting the value from itself.
Hey, you know who's a rogue?
Dealing the combat damage.
Looter O'Core.
That's fair.
Okay, I guess, yeah. I just didn't think of that, but
I was just looking through and I was like, oh, hey, that's a rogue. Oh, Whirler Rogue's a rogue.
You're correct.
yeah.
There's the awkward thing, though, with this card where it's, yes, you get the value off other ninjas, but it's always capped at 1 treasure.
Yep.
Sure, but that's fine.
Yeah, it means you never get the explosive, like, what's that one ninja, the blue-black one that's a common from MH1?
Yeah, it's Ingenious Infiltrator.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's never like that where it starts cascading into insanity.
Yeah.
No, this is just solid value throughout the game in the ninja deck.
But having that extra mana here and there is really powerful in a deck that's continuously bouncing things to its hand.
Exactly. It's a big thing when you have to keep replaying your cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely going to help you keep casting 2 or more things each turn, which is you kind of have to do in that tempo style ninja deck. You have to continually add pressure.
Yeah, especially if you're going deeper into the theme.
Changeling Outcast is a ninja and a rogue.
I don't like Prosperous Thief outside of a true ninja theme.
Yeah, it's one of the weaker ninjas in general.
I feel like this card is good enough, but I could see it not making lists because you just don't
Look, I'm putting in Moon Circuit Hacker first of these 2 cards, since we're talking about them right now.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All right, Eric, it's your turn.
Jellyfish.
It's my turn.
Can you read that type line?
This next card. The Reality Chip is 1 and a blue for an 0/4 legendary artifact equipment jellyfish. You may look at the top card of your library anytime.
He said the thing. Everybody
He said
clap.
the thing. Oh, yay. I could look.
Say the line, Bart.
You may look at the top card of your library.
Yay! As long as the reality chip is attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library, and it has a reconfigure for 2 and a blue. So, beyond the fact that, it says the thing, and I love the fact that I get to look at the top card anytime, I do actually think this is reasonable. It's a good wall.
It's a good card.
2-drop 0/4.
Yeah.
It's a equipment. It's an artifact.
It's the blue wall of omens.
Sort of is the best we're getting.
Yeah, it's probably the best we're getting, which is not bad, I guess. The reconfigure cost feels a bit high. 2 and a blue.
It has to be, though, because you play it out for 1 and a blue.
Yeah.
It's an 0/4 wall. You can see the top card. Your opponent can't.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to know what your top card is, and you get to know exactly when to reconfigure it.
Yeah.
So that you can now play your spell off the top or whatever. It's weird to me because I want it to cost less, but you just can't. Especially because once you reconfigure it onto a creature, if they board wipe, you get back Reality Chip as a creature.
Yeah. Which is great. That's a big thing for a lot of these reconfigured creatures.
I will say this much. Future Sight back in the day used to be a staple of cubes.
Yeah.
Long ago for our newer listeners.
Several years back now.
I was but a mere child.
But this blows it out of the water. This is such a better card.
And it legitimately does. I think it's going to play quite well because it's your 2-drop wall that slows things down.
Yep.
And guess what? When you're reconfiguring, you're trying to be late into the game. And getting the extra value off the top. Playing lands is great off the top of your library. Being able to cast spells at the same time, I think this will play quite well. I actually really do like the reality chip.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not as gung-ho as you are. I know this does something special to you.
Yeah, and that's fair. I can accept that this is not an auto-include.
I think it may be. I like it as the slow blue 2-drop.
Yeah.
The one you play. Comparing it to Spellskite or any of those, it's the winner.
Yeah.
I'm not replacing Spellskite because that has a reason in the artifact deck, and I wouldn't be playing it without the artifact deck, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But whatever your slow blue 2-drop is for, you're like, this is my control deck's 2-drop,
Yeah.
this is
I like
going
it.
to be better than it.
Yeah, basically. And I think there's a lot of fun to be had with the card as well.
It
which
is. Yeah.
is always a big bonus when it's a good card and it can be fun.
It's got the downside for me of the deck it's worst in is my preferred version of a control deck where there are 4 creatures in the deck.
And they're all mind controls.
Yeah.
Yeah, this does need more than 0 other creatures. But at the same time, like, if you're playing that deck that has nothing,
That's a big ask, Eric. That's a big ask.
well, you're still you have to have something at blocking eventually. Like
I prefer that to be my opponent's creatures.
fair.
Or removal spells.
Doomblade blocks pretty well.
I guess we can move
Got
on
the last
to
uncommon from blue.
Oh my
is it
god, we're
really?
almost through
Wow.
blue. Holy shit.
Yeah, and blue's probably going to be the longest color of the set, so
Yes, I think blue is
I don't
by
know.
far the longest color.
might be green.
it's not going to be green. Reality Heist. 5 blue for an uncommon instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 artifact cards from among them, put them into your hand, put the rest into the bottom of your library in a random order. This card is not for peasant. Enjoy, you guys.
No, this isn't for peasant. Reality Heist is an interesting one. I was not super sold on it to start with. I think it's still probably not good enough.
Probably not, but like so the
it's
cost
interesting.
reduction is big, right?
It's less big in cube than you want it to be. Like, there's a reason we aren't playing the bad affinity cards.
Right.
Like,
But at the
you
same
can't just
time,
get away
like-
with a 7-drop and say it's a 0-drop. It's a
Oh no. This is gonna be like a 4-drop.
Yeah, and at 4-drop, I have whiffed enough times on Tezzeret Agent of Bolas to know that look at the top 7, get up to 2 artifacts is a lot of the time going to be 1, and it's going to be fucking useless. It's only
Okay.
putting them in hand. I don't
Right.
think it's good enough in any way. The instant part is cute. If it was a sorcery, we wouldn't look at this
No.
card.
Yeah. Instant is big because you're holding up other things. Yeah.
But being an instant, on average 4-drop, you're getting more out of Fact or Fiction. Like, in the same deck. It's not worth it.
Okay, that's fair. I wasn't sure. I mean, you're kind of like the expert on the artifact deck for us, and anytime I see cost reduction and look at top 7 cards, like there's a lot of potential there. But
Let's talk about something far more interesting for the artifact deck. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh. He is 2 blue for a 4 loyalty legendary planeswalker Tezzeret. The first activated ability of an artifact you activate each turn costs 2 less to activate. His +1 is draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, unless you discard an artifact card. His -2 is target artifact becomes an artifact creature. If it isn't a vehicle, it has base power and toughness 4/4. And his -6 is you get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card. I fucking love him.
so I think it's pretty obvious that this Tezzeret Betrayer of Flesh is going to be very good in the artifact deck. Like you read the
Yes.
card and you go, yes, all of these things do really good things in the artifact deck. I don't think that's a particularly hard sell. I do have a question though on what your thoughts are for this Tezzeret Betrayer of Flesh in a cube that isn't pushing the artifact deck. Because like in normal cubes, you're gonna have artifacts deck, right?
It's too much of a loaded question for me because then we're going to get into the whole what are your other planeswalkers? Do you like Jace the
Okay.
Mind Sculptor? How do you feel about 3-drop Narset? We're getting into such a deep question. I don't think he's particularly strong without an artifact deck. You get a lot less value out of your thirst when it's not an artifact heavy deck. Still the fine +1 ability, don't get me wrong. It's not full thirst, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
It becomes Ral's plus ability.
Which is probably one of the best things of Rail, but
It is, but it's a whole mana higher. It is a
Yeah.
monocolor. I will say the -2, you need at least some signets or something
right.
going for it at that point.
In the decks that are going to be playing cubes that are going to have this are going to have some artifacts. Like you're going to be playing
Yeah.
signets or talismans or whatever.
I will say he plays really well with clues. First of
yeah?
all, his static ability makes clues free.
Yeah.
And his -2 makes the clue into a 4/4. He works very well with that aspect of it. There's the cutesy thing where treasures have to tap to sack on like gold.
Mhm.
So whenever you break open a treasure, his emblem triggers. There's lots of little niche things in this that all like combine together to be a wonderful design. Like as a Magic card,
Right.
like understanding the design of Magic, I appreciate this card at a level that's like it has very little to do with its cubability.
That's fair.
It is very well designed as a card to do all the right things. It has all the right words. It's checking all the right boxes. Your use of it is going to come down to how many artifacts your control deck tends to have. Look at your 3-0 control decks. Are you running a bunch of signets? Are you running, I don't know, a Vidalcan Shackles, a bunch of clue creation,
Right.
shitty ass food tokens because you're an idiot?
Thopters,
Yeah. Random stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you're running enough of them, he's good. If you're running the artifact deck, he's good. So
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that, like, if you don't have enough artifacts, he doesn't protect himself.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you don't have an artifact in play, he's just going to draw 2 cards and then probably die.
Yeah, and we can talk about all the like other splash things that he does, like equipments are cheaper because of his static ability.
Right.
Because those are activated. You can tap your treasure map more easily. There's little minor things that he does there. You can untap a Grim Monolith very simply
Yeah.
to dirty effect. Should you be playing a Grim Monolith?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of play with Tether, Terror Flesh, and I think it's pretty auto-include if you're really pushing the artifact deck.
Yeah, and even if you're not, it becomes a questionable, do you want to add him?
Yeah.
And I would have to know too much about your cube to tell you a specific answer. I
But
think
there's a possibility.
when it comes down to it, I think Tezzeret Artifice Master is probably the better one for generic
Yes.
control deck that happens to have a couple artifacts.
Yeah, I would agree, because it doesn't need artifacts. It just is better when you're playing artifacts.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of him. All right, let's move on, Eric, to the final card in blue.
All right, we've got Thousand-Faced Shadow, which is a single blue for a 1/1 human ninja with ninjutsu, 2 blue. Thousand-Faced Shadow has flying, and when Thousand-Faced Shadow enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. The token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking.
This is a perfect example of something with a high ninjutsu cost.
And in my opinion, this card is more important for standard and is not very good for cube.
I think it'll be okay in cube, primarily because it has the fact that it's a flying man.
It is interesting that it's both halves.
Yes, it's Flying Man with a creature type that matters depending on
Yes.
how much you care about the tribal aspect of Ninja.
And then when you draw it late game, you're like, okay, I guess we'll make this happen.
But it's not really worth it.
I mean, it's not bad.
It's not good.
What's the average thing you're making a token copy of?
Yeah, you're in a tempo deck. It's going to be another random 2/2.
Yeah. Or, I mean, like a Vidalian Click or something.
Click is legendary, Eric.
Yeah.
It is worth noting that whatever you make a copy of will be unblocked because it's past the blocking phase.
Correct.
If you ninjutsu in on something that was already unblocked, but then they blocked one of your other ninjas.
We're asking a lot of fucking
yeah.
loops. I'm done. No. I don't think this card is very good. I think this is a perfect example of the don't just add ninjas for the sake of it says ninja.
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong to include it just as a random Flying Man variant, but it's worse than just playing Fairy Seer or something in that slot.
I would say you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But in standard, I understand the point of it, but for us, no. Let's move into black, and we actually get to start this one off, thankfully. We get to start off with Blade of the Oni, which is 1 in a black for a 3/1 artifact creature equipment demon. It has menace, and it has the reconfigure cost of 2 black, which causes the equipped creature to have a base power and toughness of 5/5, have menace, and is a black demon in addition to its other colors and types.
Cool.
I don't care very much about the reconfigure portion of this card. It's
Nah.
a 2-drop, 3 power menace creature with other bonuses.
Yeah, and I think the reconfigure does matter.
It's non-zero, but it's not why you're here.
You're here for the 3/1 menace. Yeah.
It's the bonus points.
But the bonus points will be nice. I mean,
They're fine.
when you do it, it's probably very backbreaking. But
Honestly, this is good in the ninjas deck.
It is.
Because
You're right.
when you reconfigure onto a flying man,
Yeah.
that's a flying demon. I don't know, that's cool.
Even without that part, it's just being a menace creature. Means
Yeah.
it's unblocked often for ninjutsuing onto.
I wasn't stating the obvious. I was going for the other aspect of it. Yeah, no, like this is actually just good in that deck too.
Okay.
yeah.
No, just in general, it's fine when you're playing aggro deck in black, a tempo deck in black, blue, or whatever. All of those variations, you're going to want to be playing this card.
Not particularly great if you're in a control deck, but
No.
not every card is.
I don't think we've like said this yet, but I fucking love all of these equipment creatures in this set. The colored vehicles have been pretty
Yes.
good so far.
Yep.
This set has so many design wins for me. This is one of the best designed sets I've seen in Magic in a fucking long time.
It does feel like a lot of the things that they've learned over the past couple years have kind of like all come together in like a nice little package.
I like Innistrad. There's some problems I have with the previous 2 sets. They weren't perfect. This set is near perfect. Like one of the most exciting things I've seen Magic produce in years.
Yeah.
I just want to point out like how much I absolutely adore this set. All right, so let's continue onward. Talk us about this next card here.
I'm not talking about Dockside Chef. Single black mana for an uncommon enchantment creature, human citizen. It is a 1/2 and it has an activated ability of 1 in a black, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw a card. Okay, so I've seen a lot of talk about this card, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. And I don't necessarily think I'm going to play it because I really I don't like sacrifice activated abilities that cost 2 or more.
Yeah. That said, I mean, draw a card's pretty fucking nice.
Of course. And this can sacrifice
Like-
itself and yada yada. It's a 1-drop. Okay. There are things there. It's just like I don't like this as quote a sacrifice outlet.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not.
No, I don't think this is a good sacrifice outlet. 2 mana is just, we've learned it's too much
It is.
for a sacrifice outlet.
And so when people say like, oh, it's a 1-mana sacrifice outlet, it's not. Carrion Feeder's a 1-mana sacrifice outlet. Viscera Seer's a 1-mana sacrifice outlet. Dreadmalkin, while being 1 mana and being a sacrifice outlet, so to speak, is not a 1-mana sacrifice outlet. And this to me is worse than Dreadmalkin. They do different things, I understand. But I'm saying like...
I think they're slightly different.
I think that I like Dreadmalkin better.
I think Dockside Chef will work better if your sacrifice decks are trying to be slower and grind out more. But that's not very common. Like most of the decks that are using sacrifice, especially at lower power or rarity restricted, are like, fucking get the damage in. We want 3 drops that are killing people. Like,
I feel like you're arguing a non-existent deck.
Next up is a ninja that is neither an artifact or an equipment. This is Dokuchi Silencer. 1 in a black for an uncommon 2/1 creature, human ninja. Has ninjutsu of 1 in a black. Whenever Dokuchi Silencer deals combat damage to a player, you may discard a creature card. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Okay, so this is a ninjutsu card that is another one that I say just don't play all the ninjas. I do not like this as a Ravenous Chupacabra Necrotal variant. That's basically what it is. At least that's the same value that you're getting out of it. The problem is that you have
Yeah.
to discard a creature card. Like I understand, we were talking about this ahead of time a little bit about how because you're ninjutsuing it, you're returning a creature
You're
to your
gonna
hand,
have-
so you're gonna have that there, at least for
Yeah.
the first time. I think assuming this is going to get multiple triggers is very, very
Ambitious.
yeah, I don't think that one's getting there.
No.
I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of this. I think it reads to be really powerful, but in practice, I like this less than Moon Circuit Hacker.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather just have a kill spell if I want to kill something.
Mhm. That's all I got to say about that. I don't think that it's worth playing.
I think you're probably right. I'm trying to think of like how it could be better that we're not thinking of, but I don't see this actually being playable. Let's move on. Eric, read me a much better dragon.
Junji, the Midnight Sky, is 3 black for a 5/5 legendary dragon spirit with flying and menace. When Junji, the Midnight Sky, dies, choose 1. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Or put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Lose 2 life.
Holy fucking shit, is this better than Owl?
Yeah. 5/5 flying menace. Pretty good. A lot better than flying vigilance.
Yeah, who is a 5/4.
Yeah, I don't understand what they made it a 4 toughness.
This one just has a better fucking reanimation thing than the other ones. Flip over, fail to find, and get a fucking 4-drop. It's more dangerous and a better rattlesnake.
Forcing your opponent to discard 2 cards is not really going to happen unless you know it's going to be good. You know what I mean? Like,
or you've somehow you're at a game state where you just can't use the other ability.
I guess, yeah, that could happen.
Like if they just Bajuka bogged and didn't have anything in the yard or something. I don't know. But
classic cube card, Bajuka
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? The reason for that first line is there will be times where the second isn't an option.
And that's fair.
The only time you're choosing it.
Or, you losing 2 life is going to kill you, and you're just like, okay, I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
But the reanimation from the second one, yeah, that's good. That's a good option.
Yeah, this is just way better than Death Tyrant. Like, I just reread Death Tyrant to see how I would like it in comparison.
Death Tyrant, which one is that?
Yeah,
That's the Beholder. So it was a 5-drop 4/6 menace.
Right.
And it has the whenever an attacking creature you control or a blocking creature an opponent controls dies, you get a 2/2. And it's got a flavor text ability.
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah. All right, so we can move on real quick because that was not hard to talk about.
No.
Let's talk about Gravelighter. 2 and a black for a 2/2 uncommon creature spirit. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card if a creature died this turn. Otherwise, each player sacrifices a creature. Base stats of a Windrake in black, which is actually pretty good considering it's not black in cost, which happens very often for those. And so the other ability on this, I keep going back and forth between trying to decide if it's like a Punisher, like, you know what I mean? Like if the opponent somehow has some control over it with all the choices that go into play or not. And I think I'm leaning not, because most of the time you will be in control of whether or not a creature dies that turn. But then I remember Morbid.
Morbid sucks.
And I'm like, not so much. You know what I mean? So it's like, I keep going back and forth on this.
I mean, this is just an upgraded Fleshbag Marauder.
Fleshbag is a 3/1 without flying, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it just has the sacrifice
You're
thing.
right, but we already have an upgraded Fleshbag Marauder.
Yeah.
Which is Plague Crafter,
Yes.
which is 3/2. And what happens when they don't sack?
They discard a card. I also don't even play Plague Crafter anymore, because
I don't know which of those two I prefer more. So if you're not playing either, then there you go.
Yeah.
But I think I like Gravelighter more than Plague Crafter.
Yeah.
But
this at least can get you value outside of the sacrifice. Because see, that's the problem with all of those Fleshbag Marauder type of cards, is that they have gone so far down in the power scale rankings due to the ever presence of tokens and whatnot, that they need something else. Like if this was just Fleshbag Marauder but a 2/2 flyer, that's not good enough.
no.
And so then and I think it is good enough for what it's worth. Like I think that if a creature died this turn, claws will come up, and when it does, that's super awesome. But yeah.
Yeah, drawing cards are fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think this is amazing. I do think it has spots and cubes, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we've got Mukotai Soul Ripper, which is 1 and a black for a 4/3 artifact vehicle. As whenever Mukotai Soul Ripper attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact or creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Mukotai Soul Ripper, and it gains menace until end of turn. It also has crew 2.
How come you guys get all the 5-power menace creatures?
Yeah, I know, right? This is an insanely good vehicle, except for the crew 2 is slightly scary. But
Unless you have a pilot.
you're already in the deck where you want to be sacrificing to give this the menace and the +1/+1. So I'm assuming you're fine with crewing 2 because you probably have a bunch of 1/1 tokens or something that got its value and is gone.
That's the thing is, like, in that deck, you're going to have a lot of 1/1s.
Yeah. Well, then the other question is, are we crewing it with things that are recursive like Bloodghast?
Yeah, that works well.
Yeah. Or any of the more recursive 2-power 1-drops in black, like Gutter Bones or Dread Wanderer, Blood-Soaked Champion, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So you either get recursive stuff, you get your 1/1 goblins or whatever that you're going to sacrifice anyway, something like that. I can
Okay.
see this being very good as long as you want to be in sort of a red-black, either aggro or aristocrat-y, something in there.
Even on the aristocrats, though, you have to be forcing it to be faster. Like,
Yeah.
you're not trying to slow down with this. Like, this is pushing damage quick.
Yeah, I do think in just red-black aggressive decks, just sacrificing your Ragavan or whatever to get more damage up front quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. And, like, the fact that it gains menace means that, like, you're getting the damage almost guaranteed in the aggressive style deck.
Yeah. Like, you may just sacrifice your 2-power 1-drop who was going to bounce anyway.
Yeah. You just crew it and then sacrifice it and make it big.
I feel like you got to be really careful with though. It gets blown out so easily.
Yeah.
It kind of gets blown out more easily, but at the same time, it's like you're the deck that doesn't care about turn 5. Like, you're throwing your cards at your opponent, trying to
Yeah.
get them dead now.
Basically.
At a certain point, you just have to shove it.
I get you on that. It's just when you've got like 2 3-power creatures, right? That you're attacking with both and it's early on in the game. Hey, that's pretty good. If they have a removal spell, they get rid of one, okay, whatever. When you've got this going on, you're kind of going all in on a tall strategy in a lot of cases because like you said, you're not going into the mid to late game.
I don't think it's all in, though, because
No, it does open you up more, though.
like the 2-power creature is not going to get through. It's not a card anymore, thus it's useless to the red deck at this point.
Okay, so I guess in unpowered, this is a little bit different again. I think that's where the disjointedness is here because I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you're attacking with this on turn 3. Your 2-power creatures could definitely still be doing something.
Yeah, but they're just playing a fucking 3/4
Yeah,
or 4/5 on turn 3.
That's true. So that makes a difference.
Or a 5/5 in certain cases.
Yeah. That's fair.
All right, let's move back to Christian.
Yep, we're going to finish off black with 2 cards.
Oh shit, a rat.
Oh my god, it's a rat. This is Nezumi Prowler. 1 and a black for an uncommon 3/1 artifact creature, Rat Ninja. It's an artifact creature. I knew I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all artifact.
When Nezumi Prowler enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. This card's fucking sick.
I think it's pretty sweet, actually, yeah.
I mean, like, you've got... So, okay, let's talk about a few of the modes here. You have the just playing it, giving your 1-drop Death Touch and Lifelink. That's cool, right? You've got the ninjutsu effect where this gets in there, and you can either give it the Death Touch and Lifelink, get a little bit of Life Swing, or if they block something, you give it the Death Touch and Lifelink. You know what I mean? Like, it's you got all the different things there. It's a 3-powered 2-drop in black. That's pretty sick. The fact that it's an artifact is really cool for the artifact aggro deck. Being able to get some value when you're not just in Boros is nice, where you can have like the sort of red-black artifact aggro deck pop up because of things like this. So I'm actually just a huge fan of this card. This is so much more playable, in my opinion, than a lot of these other ninjas that we've been like humming about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to it. It's not particularly amazing, but I think it's doing solid in a lot of options for the aggressive decks.
I feel like it's just a much better version of the silencer we just spent 2 minutes talking about.
Yeah, honestly though, it really is.
Yeah,
But I saw so many more people talking about that card than this card.
the 3 power instead of 2 on your 2-drop when you're aggressive
Mhm.
matters. It just does.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, cool stuff there.
All right, let's talk about bike gangs.
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Final card in black, and the final card of this episode is going to be Okiba Reckoner Raid. This is a single black mana for a saga. Turn 1 and 2 of this saga is each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I forgot to mention this is a common, by the way. Turn 3, you exile this and return it. It becomes a Nezumi Road Captain, which is a 2/2 menace that also says vehicles you control have menace, which is not going to come up very often.
I enjoy that after the first 2, you're like, remember, it's a common. I know this sounds bad.
I have to say, before we get into the official discussion, I take back my statement from earlier in this podcast. The Modern Age does not have the best saga art. This card does.
Yeah.
That rat is wearing the coolest fucking leather gang jacket.
Yeah.
So this is a 1-drop that drains them for 1, then it drains them for 1, then it makes a summoning sick 2/2 menace. I'm going to, for the purposes of this discussion, ignore vehicles you control have menace. I do not think it's going to come up very
Yeah.
often.
That's fair.
I actually don't think this card's particularly playable. Am I wrong?
No, if the card had haste,
Yeah.
we might have discussion points here.
Yeah. I bring it up because, again, lots of discussion happening about this card.
Again, at common, this might be great. But the problem I have is, so turn 1, you play it, drain 1. Next turn, drain 1. So you've gotten 2 life out of your opponent by the end of turn 2.
Yeah.
Whatever. We need to start having the payoff now. Turn 3, this flips over and doesn't get to swing. And that's what kills it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you because, like, on turn 3, swinging with a 2/2 menace is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been a great payoff for this 1-drop as a low investment way to do this.
Yep.
On turn 4, they're going to have 2 blockers, most likely.
Yep.
And that 2/2 menace, whatever, it's either going to be eaten or there's this point where, like, the 2 power just doesn't matter.
Yeah. So it's a little sad because this card's really cool.
It is.
But
I don't think it gets there, though. All right. That wraps up the first half of this, and hopefully the longer of the 2 halves, because I'm already starting to die and we have a lot to go. Let's end it here, and we will be back in part 2 in your ear holes in probably a few minutes.